Good morning. The sun is shining bright in Atlanta as we hop aboard the Maddog from an old Delta livery called the Widget. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Dave. I do the spy flights over on Twitch, and every now and then come on over here to YouTube to do what I call a complete flight, a cold and dark flight. You walk into the airplane, all the switches are off. How do you get the airplane up in the air, go to cruise, land, and make it to the gates without, having pixels spread all over the place? It's a cold and dark flight, and today we are flying the Maddog, the MD-11 today, and we're going to be taking it on a flight that I'm sure Delta probably flew with the Maddog a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We are in the MD-80. Actually, this is the MD-82. The airplane has been recently updated, and it just keeps getting better and better. One of the things about this is, even though this is an old clunky jetliner that has a little bit of attitude and stuff, there is a lot of deep detail to this airplane. So we're going to show you some of the detail, do my best to. Navigraph SimBrief for add-ons that I'm using. I have a payware airport for Tampa. We've got a default airport for Atlanta. I'll also be using Pushback Helper. We are using real-world weather and time, so your runways may be a little bit different. We'll be showing you the Maddog A-cars. You know, the EFB, the electronic flight bag, that's a pretty good, that's a pretty cool tool as well. So what should you do? Well, if you've got the sim and you got the airplane, hit pause on the video, start up your simulator, and fly along with me. The cool part about this is you get to pause and restart the video, and that really does kind of help you learn where all the buttons are. And then after doing this video with me, one of the things I like to suggest is do what I call your own hometown flight. That is, take the airplane up again in a couple of days and depart out of your hometown airport. You might find the familiar surroundings a little bit nicer. Our flight today is Atlanta to Tampa today. We're departing off of Atlanta's 27 right on the Bang 3 departure. Hopefully we don't bang anything up. We're doing LUCKK and HONID to the Matty 4 into Tampa's 1 left. Our altitude today is flight level 360. Flight time's about an hour and 35 minutes. It's a whole whopping 367 nautical miles. So here we are at Atlanta Airport. The airplane is at the gate. You can probably see that the jetway is not here at the airplane either. So the first thing that you really have to do to get this airplane going after you've gone over to SimBrief and done your flight planning is hop into the cockpit, and there is our whole cockpit. One of the things that I really like to do if I get into an airplane is just make sure that the throttle levers are working, make sure that the yoke is working, make sure that the rudder pedals are working, those sorts of things. Make sure that speed brake lever might work too. Just make sure that your custom controls, your joysticks and all, make sure that those are going to be in good shape too. And now the next thing for us to do is to go ahead and start the electronic flight bag, the EFB. They also call this the iPad. Okay, so the first thing to do is hold down the on switch, the power switch here, and then wait for that to come up. While you're there, let's see, I'm a little bit off my center line here. And since I have rudder pedals, the center line is kind of important. So the first thing we're going to do is go over here to Aircraft Services. And I'm going to go over here and click the ground tab, and I'm going to just call up a ground power unit right now. The other thing is I'm going to slide this. You have to kind of slide it over because there's some buttons that are underneath the electronic EFB, and it's if you click that, it kind of clicks those buttons instead of the other buttons. And one of the things to do is make sure your cockpit units are correct, and that's going to be pounds in this case. It's an old Delta jetliner. They did this in pounds. So then I got to slide it over here again to close it, and there we go. So airplane is still cold and dark at the moment. What about the jetway? So you can open up stairways and stuff, but we're at an airport with a jetway. What do you do? If you have GSX, you can do the jetway pretty easily, but I use Pushback Helper. And Pushback Helper is free. You can get Pushback Helper at flightsim.to, and it really is a good little utility to just have on your desktop when you need to do a fast pushback. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call, my parking brakes are on, I'm going to call the jetway, and as soon as I call it, I'm going to get out of the app. That way it can't retract the jetway or anything. And as you can see, our jetway is coming on over, and it's going to go right over there to the front door. It also will open your front door for you too. And now we got a jetway. Just a little bit of immersion if you'd like to do that. Yeah, I've got Billund Airport ground gear. This is, I had some replacement textures and they're still there, but rest assured, we are in Atlanta. And you can also see that my main forward door is open too. We're going to go to forward cargo, mid cargo, and aft cargo. And all of my cargo bays are open too. So that's good. Now we're going to get out of this. The doors are open, jetway's in place. Let's go to weight and balance. Now I've already gone and done my flight plan today through SimBrief. So what we're going to do is if you've connected your EFB and you do that in settings, just put in your username. I'm going to look over here. My weight is in pounds. And now I'm going to call my SimBrief OPF. And it's going to go out to SimBrief and get my OPF operational flight plan. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look over here and check my flight number. It's Delta Flight 441. It doesn't give you departure and arrival, but one of the things that you could do is you could look at your ZFW, zero fuel weight. It says 104,961. What does it say on the flight plan? It says 107,915. That's close. The number is not exact at the moment, but it works pretty good, so I'm going to take that. You could also check your passengers. It says 111 of 162 passengers. Oh, okay, there's 111 right there. That's pretty good. So you can kind of check those things. We don't have a lot of cargo, and fuel is going to be left and right, and there's fuel on board. It says 18,244 pounds. That's the last thing we're going to check as far as numbers, 18,244 pounds. So our flight plan is pretty well set up. And that's really the last thing that we have to do. Now we get to go and start flipping switches and buttons and everything else. Okay, you ready? So first things first, we're going to come up here to the overhead panel, and I'm going to zoom in here. You can see some lights are on here. It says external power is available. The first thing we're going to do is come down here and turn on the battery. And it's 2 clicks on this battery. So click it once, that turns the battery on. Click it again, and it turns it. That locks it, so you can't turn the battery off by mistake. And then after that, we'll come over here and listen in, and we'll check in with Betty. Let's see if Betty's aboard. Okay, Betty is aboard. That's the voice of the airplane. And the pilots over the years called that voice Betty. They were a little bit mean to Betty. They called her Bitchin' Betty. I think that Betty's pretty cool. So I just say, hey, Betty, what's going on? And of course, like any jetliner, you can't even go to the lavatory without the caution light going on, right? So our airplane is now coming on. The next thing we need to do is slide over to the co-pilot side, and you can see right here it says position and strobe. We're going to click this one down, and that turns on the position lights. These are going to be the lights on the wingtips, and you can even barely see, of course that's in the way. Let's see if we can see the red wingtip. Oh yeah, the red wingtip light is on. So that's going to turn on the nav lights. I think we're also going to have a white light in the back of the airplane, and that's going to be the back, or maybe it's white lights on the wingtips. Oh, there's white lights on the wingtips. So that's where those white lights are. Okay, so we've got those lights on right now, and then the next things that we can probably do is come and flip a few more switches up here. Let's come on down here, and we're going to turn on the emergency exit lights. We're going to arm those. Those need to be armed. And then the next thing that you could do is if it's dark outside, you can go and do a little bit of cockpit lighting. And the cockpit lighting is for the upper panel. It's up here. And I'll usually turn this up about halfway. And this is the backlighting for the upper panel. And then I'll also maybe turn up a floodlight just a little bit. The next thing we're going to do is want to go and do the same thing down here. So panel lighting is going to go up a little bit. And then if it's dark, you might turn up the floodlighting too. We've also got some lights down here that we can turn on. And again, this is panel lighting. We're going to want to turn that up a little bit brighter because that's also the numbers for your radios, and maybe 2 clicks of the floodlight. And there we go. Things are slowly coming to life. You could also come over here, and there are these 2 dials underneath the autopilot, and you can turn that up and add a little bit of backlighting so that the labels are a little bit easier to read. So now that we got that, it's time to go and start loading some stuff into the flight management computer. And on the surface, this thing looks like it's pretty basic, but there's actually a lot in here. We're going to start by coming over here to the co-pilot side, and I'm going to hit the menu button. You can do it on the pilot side too, but I usually do all of my ACARS stuff on the co-pilot side. And we're going to hit ACARS, and then we're going to hit AOC STD. That stands for Air Operations Control, Airline Operations Control, and STD Standard. And then CPDLC, that is the texting system that goes between ATC and airplanes. It's really cool. We're not using that one today. So we're just going to come over here, and we're going to do the pre-flight. And the first thing we do is init the data. And if you've done your flight plan through SimBrief and entered your SimBrief ID into the airplane in settings, you can init request, and it's going to go to SimBrief, and it's going to get your flight plan. So our flight number should be 441. We are Delta Airlines. We're going from Atlanta to Tampa, and our scheduled date is today. Our estimated time en route is 1 hour and 3 minutes. And there you go. Pretty cool. Flight ID Delta 441. Return. The next thing we're going to do is weight and balance, and you need your flight plan for this one. So your flight plan, and you're going to be on page 1, and we need a couple of numbers here. The first number we need is trip fuel, and then we're going to also need taxi fuel, which is right down here, and we need block fuel. That's how much gas they put in the gas tank. So the first number that we need is trip fuel, and that's 7,241 pounds. 7,241 pounds. That goes up there. Taxi fuel today, this is just basically taxi out, 1,400 pounds of fuel, and that gets us about 35 minutes of taxi time. Block fuel is 18,244 pounds of fuel. We definitely are going to be packing some fuel here. Did you hear that bell? No, you're not hearing things. What that is that's an ACARS message. And if you, oh, we got an ACARS message. Well, let's reset it. And let's come on down here, and we're going to send our fuel. This is what actually fuels your airplane for you. So fuel is now in the airplane. Let's come on down here, and we're going to return. And let's just request the flight plan now. And the star went away for a second. When the star returns, you're done with that. But what about that ACARS message? Return. See where it says received messages? Hey, look at this. Here's a crew message. And now it says our crew message, preliminary weights, our zero fuel weight, 104,961. Center of gravity, our takeoff weight, our takeoff center of gravity. One page, that's just our initial report. And so we just got that. We're also going to get the flight plan. So let's return out of here, and we'll wait for the flight plan. Up, there's the bell again. We got another ACARS message. So we'll clear that. And our flight plan is now in. There is all sorts of great data. In fact, with this, you don't even need that PDF of your flight plan anymore. Everything you need is going to be right here in the data link. Delta Flight 441, Atlanta to Tampa, cruise altitude, flight level 360, block fuel, our cruise winds. Let's see, here is our top of climb or outside air temperature. There's fuel reserve, 7.9. There's trip fuel. All of that information just popped into the airplane, which is really, really pretty awesome. Okay, so now let's go over to the captain's side. And we're going to check our nav data, and we're going to have current nav data. Let's go to position init, and we're going to go and say that we're at Atlanta, KATL. Atlanta Airport. We are at gate Alpha 26. I knew that because I checked the paint on the ground. There it is, Alpha 26. You check the paint on the ground, and that way you know where you are. So we are over here at Alpha 26. And sometimes when you put in a gate number, that data is not available to the airplane. But it is here at Atlanta, so the real pilots are going to take a look at their GPS position and compare that with the gate position, and that's how they kind of verify their position. And then they'll just go and get that GPS position after it's verified and put it into the FMC position. And that's how they go and do that. Now we're going to go to the route. And because we did our flight plan with SimBrief, we can go do KATL. So Atlanta, KATL, and then our destination, Tampa, KTPA, Tampa. Put that in your company route, and it went and just got the flight plan. And in this case, our flight plan's only 2 waypoints. So there you go. Activate it and execute it. Time to go and make the cabin comfy for passengers. So we're going to come on in here, and we're going to hit the master switch for the APU. We're going to go to run. And the way I've been starting it is after run, I turn it to start, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After 5, I just go back to run. That's when the APU starts to show some RPM. And of course, if you go outside your airplane, you'll hear the APU starting up. Sounds on the airplane are actually pretty good. That being said, one of the things you're going to notice is up in the cockpit, it seems unusually quiet for a jetliner. That's because the engines are way in the back of the airplane, and the pilots say that this is one of the quietest cockpit rides ever. And there goes our APU starting up pretty good. All right, APU is coming up at, oh my goodness, another master caution. We will show caution. Okay, so all of this is good. Let's go ahead and do performance init. And instead of zooming in so you can see it better, we're actually going to use both these to work together. Performance init. So our cruise altitude, flight level 360 right there. Now you could also, the real pilots, they're going to be verifying that with their printed flight plan too. Cruise winds are 291 at 81 knots. So 291 degrees, and do the slash, and 81 knots. Our top of climb outside air temperature, oh, that was over on page 2. And that is minus 53 degrees. Don't worry, kids. We're turning the heat on. It won't be that cold in the cabin. Reserves. Our reserves are 7.9, 7,900 pounds of fuel. Our zero fuel weight right now is 107.9. 107.9. And block fuel is over on page 1, and it's 18.2. 18.2. Stop right here. The next thing you do is the schedule. And so you have to do the little slash here and hit N for normal. And I think that's your fuel burn, and it's just going to be a normal fuel burn for us today. All right, so all of this looks good, and now we can go and do takeoff and departure, takeoff and approach. So we're done over there with that flight plan for a second, so let's go and do our runways. Now then, we're at Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport, so I got a little bit of a rabbit hole for you now. And this little rabbit hole here is your departure runway. We're over here using SimBrief, Navigraph, I mean, really fabulous. Just the things we can do with this are so amazing. So we can use this as our taxi chart. But what I wanted to do was show you a special page. And this is a special page that they have for Atlanta. And I'll show you where to find it. Go to Airports, go to your Atlanta tab, go to Charts, and go to SID. This is the third one down. RNAV departure, attention all users, page continued. Okay? And this is the thing that if you're flying on VATSIM, ATC expects you to know when you're flying out of Atlanta on VATSIM. The first thing you do is zoom in a little bit and find your departure. Okay, so our departure is going to be the Bang 3 departure. Oh, by the way, this is my little notepad thing that I do. I call it the flight strip. It is just a notepad thing that I've got, and if you would like a copy, look in the description below the video window, and you can copy and paste my flight pad, the one I'm using right now. You can copy and paste that into Notepad and use it any way you want. By the way, all the data is from my flight plan here. So we're doing the Bang 3 departure here. So now we got to look and find, there's Bang 3. It's a south departure on Bang 3. Dual departures is what they usually do. And that's going to be both the north and south pair of runways. So it's dual departures. It's a south departure, and they're on the 2.6s and 2.7s. This tells you we're using 27 right. Okay, that's an important thing here at Atlanta. They need you to figure that out. You have to figure out your own departure runway. Now, you might think that that adds a little extra step to the process, but I actually like this because most of our jetliners now in flight sim are coming with a departure profile performance calculator, your V speeds, and to do that, we need to know what runway you're using. Now, some airports, they love to keep it a secret so that they can, be flexible and move you to the runway they need you to keep the traffic moving. But I really like knowing what the runway is so that I can do all of my performance at the gate and not while I'm taxiing. So 27 right is going to be our runway. So that's how it is that you figure it out. So 27 right is what we'll put in here. 27 right. Right on, right? There's your first bad joke. It's going to be the Bang 3 departure, and we're coming out at LUCKK. That's our transition, and execute. So there's our departure. Now, one of the things that I've been doing is for longer flights, I don't usually put in the arrival because in some cases, ATC might change the arrival. And sometimes the runways change too. So I will, on longer flights, I won't do the arrival and I won't do the arrival runway. This one, we know what we're going to be doing and it's not that long. So SimBrief says 1 left, and that, by the way, is what's happening in the real world right now. So that's pretty good. We're going to be doing the Maddog 4 arrival, and Maddog 4, and it's going to be our transition is HONID. And then the last thing you have is a transition to the runway. So come on in here and let's look at Maddog 4. We're coming on in. There's HONID. We're going to come down here. There's Maddog. We're going to be on 1 left, so that's going to be landing to the north. Okay, there's the St. Petersburg VOR, Pi. That was the transition. Do we really want to do Pi? I don't think so. I don't see Pi after Phelim. And in fact, when we do this on VATSIM before, they never talk about Pi, which is too bad because Pi would taste good right now. So we're not going to use that transition. We're going to go to Phelim, and we're just going to come on in. Now, if the transition were a waypoint straight out from the end of the runway, I might change that because that's going to draw an extra long line into the runway on the map. But right now, I don't think we need it, so there is our flight plan. Execute. Let's go to legs, and slaw, rigs, rivet, bang, LUCKK, HONID, turtle, heaven, leg, G.I. Joe, Gojo, ahoy, matey, roker, blowout, sea bass, tooth, buggo, Phelim. There we go, Phelim. And then vectors. And then there's the ILS. Our flight plan is complete. Perfect. So all of that looks good. Let's go back to route. All of this looks good. Oh, you know what I've forgotten to do? We've forgotten to put the passengers aboard. All right, so we got to go ahead and turn on the air conditioning. It's Atlanta. So the first thing we'll do is with the APU running, I'm going to turn on the APU air. And then we have to come down here to the cross bleeds and turn these on. And that's these 2 levers down here. So we're going to turn on the cross bleeds, and then we'll come back up here, and with the cross bleeds on, we're going to come turn on the air conditioning. And you can see, all of a sudden, now we've got pneumatics running through the airplane here. Okay, so that's good. Let's come on over here. We're going to exit out of there. Let's go to aircraft services and start boarding. And 111 passengers are going to be boarding. And I was a little late on boarding, so we may have a little bit of waiting to do. But we can talk about the departure a little bit because there's something important to talk about there. And the airplane does have some pretty good boarding sounds. You can see over here my door to the cabin is open. So you're going to hear some boarding sounds. If you don't want to hear them, just close the door. There's our jetway. You can see the passenger doors open. There's all of our seats. So all of that looks good. Let's finish up the flight management computer. So over here, our departure is good. Our performance initialization is good. Let's go to takeoff. And now we're going to go ahead and do the we're going to go ahead and do the the performance calculations for our departure. So there's the performance tab, and the first thing to do is to come over here and get the TOW. Okay, TOW. I call it stands for takeoff weight. It's 124.8. That's your zero fuel weight plus your fuel minus your taxi. I think that's the way it works. So 124.8. Remember that. And we're going to come over here and put takeoff weight in here. 124.8. You got to click this real carefully. That's the first thing that I go and pop in there. Okay, now the next things for us to go ahead and do is let's go and do the data here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in conditions are good. We need to change our runway. And our runway is going to be 27 right. So let's get 27 right. 27 right. We want optimum flaps. Atlanta, right now, the weather's pretty good, so anti-ice is off. Packs can stay on. And now we have to put in the other data. And I went and got the METAR data. You can also get your METAR data over here. Go to airports. Go to Atlanta. Go to information or go to weather. And here's your latest METAR. And what's really cool is the people from Navigraph made this something you can copy and paste into your notes. So I'm going to copy and paste this into my flight notes right there. And this is the latest METAR. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug our data in. So there's our data. And we're going to go ahead and do the wind. Wind in Atlanta right now is 140 at 3. 140/03. And enter. The outside air temperature in Atlanta is 11 degrees, so 11, and enter. Our altimeter in Atlanta is 3020, 3020, and enter. Let's go put the altimeter in here now while we're remembering to. So 3020. This also, I believe, sets the co-pilot, but if you want to be like the real pilots, go ahead and set your backup altimeter now too. 3020. There we go. Now we can come over here and hit calculate. And it's going to buzz the numbers around, and we've got takeoff speeds, we've got a flap setting, and we've got selected temperature. First thing, flap setting, 4.0. This is one of the goofy things about this airplane that I actually really like, and it's called dial a flap. And we're going to dial our flap setting in, so 4 degrees. But still, dial a flap sounds like one of those old, late night television commercials. Call 1-800-DIAL-A-FLAP. Anyhow, 4 degrees, we've set that in there. Okay, the next thing is our selected temperature. This is like your flex temperature. In fact, it even says flex. So takeoff flex, and we're going to go takeoff flex, and we'll set that temperature. And it was what again? 50 degrees. So 50 degrees is our flex. And you can see over on the co-pilot side that number's popped up. It also set that number, I believe, over on the pilot's side too. Yeah, 50 degrees. So we've got that. Next, we've got takeoff speeds, 128, 142, 151. 128. I already forgot. 142 and 151. 142. Whoop, forgot the 4. 42. And then 151. After you do that, come on up here and click your bugs. Bugs are set for takeoff. And then the last thing that I do is V-flap. So this is when you can start retracting flaps, and V-flap is 156. I'm going to make that my first speed off the runway. So that was what again? 156. 156 is my first speed. We could also turn on our flight directors now. So flight directors are going to go on. Do you remember our departure, our cleared altitude? This is something ATC is going to want you to remember over on VATSIM. They kind of want you to take a look over here like the real pilots and look for a top altitude. It's different. Everything's different. Sometimes there's nothing there, but you still got to look. 10,000 feet. So let's come on over here and we'll put in 10,000 feet. So 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then push the button. That'll arm it. See how it made it amber down there? That's good. Next thing is our heading off the runway. And our initial heading off the runway is going to be 275 degrees. So 275 degrees is our heading. 275. This airplane, if you start spinning your little mouse wheel around, it will really speed this up. And then usually, depending upon the departure, I might pre-arm a few things. So I'm going to go EPR limit, I'm going to hit VNAV, and I'm going to hit NAV. And just arm all of those things and have them ready to go. Might not be the right time to do it. That's just what's been working for me right now. We also could come down here and set our squawk. And down here in the altimeter, so let's go 2,000. I'm also going to go and increase my range ring to 15 miles. And that's going to be good. And oh, we have another bell. This one is the flight attendant. I'll bet we're done boarding passengers. Let's see. Let's go to aircraft services. Hey, look at that. Passengers are boarded, and it even closed all the doors for us. So passengers are in their seats and ready to go. So let's come on up here, and we're going to flip the switch. And if you're ever sitting in a passenger liner and wonder why the lights flicker and stuff, it's the pilots going over here and flipping from ground power to the APU. And then after the engines start, they flip over to the engine generators. So we've got those already turned on. And we got another ACARS message. And I'll bet this is our final load sheet now that the passengers are loaded. And usually this is going to show a slight difference. Our takeoff weight now is 121.805. So let's just put in performance 121.805. 121.805. Everything else is the same. Let's see if it changed anything here. Dial-a-flap is 4.0. Selected temperature is 50. 126, 140, 149. 126. 140. So it changed it a little bit. And 149. 149. Come over here. Pinch the bugs together. And you see how it changed it a little? Bugs are set for takeoff. And V-flap is now 154. It was 156. And there we go. We're ready to push back. So with all of this done, let's come on up here. We're going to make sure that you've turned off the external power switches. Otherwise, these old airplanes, if the ground crew comes in and that switch is still on, apparently that could cause a big spark sometimes. And we do not want to do that because I don't think that the ground crew gets a real charge out of that. Welcome to the spy flight. The dumb jokes are a part of it. Sorry about that. I think we're ready to go. So let's come on up here, and passengers are aboard. Doors are closed. I'm going to go ahead and go seatbelts on. We're also going to come on down here, and let's do the rotating beacon, which is going to pull the chocks. Chocks are pulled, and now we're going to get our old buddy pushback helper again. And there's pushback helper, and it says the door is open, but we're going to go over here and hit the jetway button. And this should retract the jetway. There goes the jetway, and it says the door is open. And at the same time, we're going to call the tug. And here comes our tug from Norway. And all is going pretty good here. So that looks really good. Everything's great. I usually, I've always thought that you're supposed to wait to uncage your backup artificial horizon until after the engines have started. People on the live stream over on Twitch tell me, no, you can do it right now. And it apparently drives a few people crazy that I don't do it. You're going to notice here where it says VOR fail, you're going to say, oh gosh, what happened? It just means that it's not receiving a VOR station right now. Nothing has failed. Okay, I think we're ready to go here. So we're on APU. Oh, we have not disconnected ground power. So come on over here, aircraft services, ground. Ah, there's the GPU. That's good. Now we can go and blow out of here, right? So we'll come over here and we're going to do parking brake off and reverse. And out we go. You can come over here and monitor your pushback here with the moving map on the Navigraph charts, which I really like. And we're going to need to spin the tail to the left here. So there's a bit of a left turn. These airplanes do not turn on the ground on a dime with pushback. So they do not turn on a dime. Let's see, we could go ahead and turn on some fuel pumps right now. Here come the fuel pumps. No fuel in the center tank. Let's do the starter pump. System A. Open up the starter valves. How about if we start one? Starting an engine. And let's look down here. Look down at this engine here. N2. If it goes up, that means you set it right. And, oh, it stopped. It should go to 20. That's because these old planes, you have to turn off the air conditioning packs. And now it's going to continue up to 20 to be able to speed it on its way. Oh, I overturned. I overturned the airplane. Not paying attention. There's 20. We can go and do fuel. Here comes fuel. That's probably pretty good. Let's straighten it out. Stop. And let's pull it forward and get us out of the way here. We got a good start there. Totally forgot to turn off the packs. So if you've ever been sitting in the airplane wondering, how come they turn off the air conditioning? They need all of that air to spin the engines before they introduce fuel. And that's probably pretty good right about there. We'll stop. Let's go and do parking brakes. Very sloppy job of doing the tug today. As soon as the tug drives away, you can turn off pushback helper, and it worked like a charm. And let's go ahead and turn off this starter. And let's go ahead and start engine number 1. And look down here. Engine number 1 starts. So N2 is going up. The pilots are also going to look at hydraulic pressure. They're going to look at oil pressure too as that goes up too. Make sure it doesn't start going down, indicating a big oil leak or something. Yeah, they get oil leaks. And at 20%, come down here and do the fuel cutoff to on. And there goes our engine. If we were on VATSIM, I'd be getting yelled at. They'd be telling me to squawk mode Charlie on taxiways. So we will turn transponder to on. Okay, so this is looking good. We got another thing going on there. Flight attendants are telling us that the passengers are in their seat belts. So now we can come down here and we can go deny to the door. That closes the cockpit door. And it looks like we got a good start on engine number 1. So let's go and turn off the starter. Guard it. Go to system off. Starter pump can go off too. Next thing we'll do is do the pitot tube. Come on up here and turn off the APU first, the generators, and then we can shut down the APU. We'll also come over here and turn on the air conditioning because we have the engine started now. And then we also would come down here and we're going to turn off the cross bleeds here. And those are off. While you're here, I think I turned something over here. I don't know what I'm doing. I think I hit a button here. I hope I didn't mess anything up. I was trying to come over here because we need to turn on the auto brake and go to takeoff. And then the next thing we'll do is come down here and arm the speed brakes. Then we can come over here and do flaps 1. The first setting is leading edge slats. And if you come out here and look out the window, you'll see the leading edge slats are going down. And then the next thing we'll do is come back over here and do our first position, and that's going to be flaps 4. And if you look back here, you'll see the flaps are rolling out to flaps 4. I think it did it already. Okay, what do we got to do up here? One last thing, and that's to come down here, and I don't think I'm doing this right. I'm going to flip the cabin pressurization to standby, click the blue button, and then turn it to primary, click the blue button again, extinguish the lights, come over here, and look at the airport elevation. Our airport elevation is 26. That's going to be a really small number. So there's about 20. So that's about it. And our altimeter for landing is 3020. So 3020 is our landing. So there's 30. That's about as close as we're going to get. Pressurization is now set. I think we're ready to go. So taxi time. Airplane's looking pretty smart here. Again, I'm probably going to get yelled at for my pushback abilities or lack thereof. Everything else is looking good here. Let's acknowledge the final load sheet. Let's come up here. All the lights are good. The beacon's on. I'm going to turn on the nose light. And there's the nose light. And if you look, you can see our nose lights are on now for taxi. I'm going to gently sit back, feet on the rudder pedals. Parking brake is off. Toe brakes are now on. And it's time to taxi on out. Release the parking brakes. Airplane just sits there. Big old metal airplane. You're going to have to run up the engines a little bit to get it going. And hold it there. After you get the airplane rolling down the taxiway, you can go back to near idle, and the airplane will do a relatively nice engine thrust idle taxi. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is flip. We got a little switch down here. Man, I hope I didn't mess anything up. We've got a switch here, and what it is it's arm and disarm for the auto brakes. And we'll come on out here, nose wheel tiller, as we start our turn on the line here. If you're on VATSIM right now here at Atlanta, one of the things you'll do is you basically be told to push and start and call at the appropriate end of the apron for your taxi. That's a little confusing for some people. Generally, this apron area is uncontrolled here at Atlanta. What they want you to do is call at the end of the apron, and in this case, it's going to be 1 Sierra is us. And so once we get there, and you know which way to go based on, which runway you're supposed to use based on that chart, we just yammered about. So right now, we would just be going like this. Next thing we might do is run the engines up here. So let's go ahead and run them up and see if Betty says anything to me. Okay, Betty said stabilizer. That's your trim. And I have failed to set my trim. That's these guys right here. So hold your trim key. See the green thing? Take the silver thing and match it to the green thing. I'm sure that Mr. McDonnell Douglas doesn't appreciate me calling it the green thing and the silver thing. Okay, brakes. We're coming up kind of close here. And you can see we're coming up to a big triangle in the paint. That's going to be that 1 Sierra point. This is where you stop and talk to ground and say that this is Delta Flight 441, holding short of 1 Sierra with information Foxtrot. That means you're holding short here and you have the latest data. That's what they need to hear from you. At which point they're probably going to tell you Delta 441, taxi to runway 27 right via Lima and Lima Alpha. Okay, there we go. And what that means is we can now come out of the apron, use the Lima taxiway, and go all the way down to Lima Alpha. This is a Maddog. They're going to give us full length for the runway. Okay, so out we go. Let's, since we got to get the airplane rolling, we're going to push the throttles up a little more. I just pushed them up a little more, and Betty didn't say anything. And I'm pushing them up a fair distance here. I'll show you how much I'm pushing it. Let's get over here on the taxiway. And around we go. And I'm pushing this thing up a fair way. I'll show you how far I'm pushing it to get Betty to say something. So if you didn't have your flaps set correct, if you didn't have your speed brake set, or your auto brake set, or your trim set, Betty's going to tell you, hey, this isn't set correctly. So that's sort of your takeoff config thing, config button in an Airbus. So watch how far I push my throttles up to get Betty to talk. That's what it takes to get Betty to talk to you. Okay? Now you're also going to speed up a little on the taxiway, so make sure you're centered up there and all ready to go. All right, all is right with the world here. Then the last thing that we need to do is press the magic takeoff button. Okay, it's not magic. I like to call it the magic takeoff button, but we're going to hit this. This is arming toga. Okay, so we got that there. Seem to be going kind of fast here. Let's do the brakes. If you decided to do a flex takeoff like we normally do, we got to turn off ART. Okay, there's this guy Art over here. Okay, that's not what it's all about. What ART does is if you're going to do a full toga takeoff, ART would give you an extra boost of power under certain conditions, like a wind shear or something like that. So, but if you're going to do a flex takeoff, you need to turn off ART for takeoff. So we got ART taken care of there. It's kind of the way that I remember things with airplanes, you know, some goofy name like that. And, you know, pilots, real pilots, maybe they're not as goofy as my names, but they come up with things like that too. If you were a pilot in a Boeing, there is something called airbag. And airbag is how you remember all the things you're supposed to do to set up the set up a departure. And so pilots do those sorts of things too. As we approach the runway, the last thing that I'm going to do is grab Mr. Flight Plan over here, and I'm going to look at minimum takeoff fuel, 16,844 pounds of fuel. And I'm going to look down at my fuel after we do this little jump to the right and step to the left. I turned a little bit too sharp, didn't I? And that is what you need to have in your tank before you push the throttles forward to blast off. And if you're in a big old VATSIM event with a lot of delays, that number becomes important. So our total fuel right now is 17,850. We need 16,844. I obviously boarded a little bit of extra fuel just for the pilot. I always do a little bit of that. Sometimes for bigger VATSIM events, I will board even more fuel just, you know, for delays and stuff. And we're all set and ready to go here. We're pretty much, it's ready. Our upper panel is in pretty good shape right now. We might do a cabin call and tell the attendants to have a seat for takeoff. But nice little taxi out. If you get a chance, look out your wing views. Get a nice little look at the airports. Look at some of the other airplanes if you're on VATSIM. We're really starting to get some cool airplanes right now. And, you know, airplane spotting can be kind of a lot of fun. One of the hard things that I have is seeing the flight directors, the two pink lines here. So one of the things that you can do is you can adjust the level of this to be able to see your flight directors. And our ground speed right now is, let's see, do I have a ground speed indicator on this? 15 knots. It's right here under the artificial horizon. Our ground speed, that's sort of your on-the-ground speedometer. And 15 knots over the ground is actually pretty good. This is actually a good speed for a taxi. It seems a little bit slow, but you got a big old jetliner behind you. So you don't have to be a big old speed demon on the ground either. There are a lot of other things that I still have to learn about this airplane. There are a lot of checks that you can do. The airplane also came with a fairly extensive flight manual. I know we don't want to read the manual, but still. It's got a fairly extensive manual. If you come outside and look down here, if you look underneath, you see a little spot underneath here. Let's go ahead and we're going to extend the landing lights. You see the landing light extending down there? It's really kind of hard to see. It's right there. The grass is getting in the way. Your landing lights are on your wingtips, and they flap down like that. It's pretty cool. I haven't turned them on yet. Landing lights are incredibly bright. So you really turn on your landing lights when you're pointed down the runway, especially at an airport, you know, where you might have an airplane on the other side of the taxiway. So over here, if we were taking off from Mike 16 and there was an airplane holding over here on the other side, you turn on the landing lights, you're just going to blind that other pilot. So we've already checked our takeoff fuel. We're well above 16,844 pounds. We're going to make it there. So fuel is not an issue. The next thing you're going to be doing as you're coming on up here is your takeoff clearance here at Atlanta is going to be Delta 441 cleared for takeoff, 27 right, RNAV to something. And they're going to tell you what your first waypoint is on your departure. Uh-oh, hang on. We're about ready to make the turn. That's an important thing here at Atlanta, and they expect you to repeat it back. So it's going to be your first RNAV waypoint in your flight plan, and then clear for takeoff. So over here, we're on runway 27 right. There's several places you can find that and know what it is. If you put in your departure correctly, if you go to legs, our first waypoint is slaw. And then if you look over here on this thing here, it says, oh, look at that, there's slaw. So for our clear for takeoff point, we're going to be told, RNAV slaw, clear for takeoff. Okay, so once we're clear for takeoff, release the brakes. I'll slide over here. And remember the position light? I'm going to click it down now. And now our strobes are on. So our strobes are on and we're all ready to go. So we're flashing the white strobes. We don't have the landing lights on. Landing lights last. And out we go over here. Might need a little bit more oomph to get going. And once we start getting going, you don't want to go too fast quite yet. And then start a gentle turn. Taxiing from the passenger cabin is an important skill for flight simmers. And around we go. Pointed down the runway. Landing lights going on. Throttle's going up about halfway or so. And we're going to go and just have a look here and make sure that our engines are stable at half. I'm going to push them up a little bit more. And I'm going to engage the auto throttle. And the auto throttle is going to move the throttles for you automatically. And as we're hurtling down the runway, I want to see it go to the word clamp. And it says clamp and it's flashing. That means the auto throttle has set our thrust. There's 80 knots. One thing I think this airplane could use is airspeed callouts. That's standard in some airplanes. I wish we had it. Okay, we're coming up to the first little bug here. That's V1. Hands off the throttle. We're flying. And V2, almost there. There's V2. Rotate. Up, up, and away. Positive rate of climb. Gear going up. So long, Atlanta. We will be back. And now we're going to fly with those flight directors. Okay, that's the inner marker for the ILS for the opposing runway. So if you're coming in, that's the inner marker. But that's going to flash at you here. Okay, we're climbing a little fast here. Push that nose down. Push the nose down a little bit more. Push it down a little bit more. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Up now, we pushed it down too much. It's cranky old jet. And we need to pull the nose up a little more. I'm trying to center them up. After you get them relatively centered, let's go AP. And AP's looking good. I'm going to hit nav. Make sure it knows what to do with nav. I'm going to hit VNav. Make sure it knows what to do with that. That buzz that you hear is the trim. So that's the trim adjusting itself. So speed sort of coming up fairly nicely, passing 5,000 at SLA, and this is also the busy point in the day, so we would probably hear ATC call us and tell us to climb and maintain 14,000 feet. Be sure and push the button and arm that. And there is 180. That was that flap speed. I'm going to go ahead and do flaps up. The new beeping you hear is the outer marker. So that's the outer marker coming on in. And speed's coming up a little bit. We're also coming close to SLA. Nav has got us, so it should make the turn, but we ought to make sure. Op speed's really coming up now. Let's go ahead and do flaps up. And slats are going up too. Everything's good to go up here. It's not yelling at us about that. Come on in here. Coming close to SLA. Let's make the map a little bit bigger right now. Ah, that's easier to see. There's SLA, and then there's rigs, and out we go. Speed's coming up to 250 knots. That looks great. I'm going to go ahead and do what I call the after takeoff items. And that's going to be disarm the speed brakes. Come on down here and turn auto brakes off. And I'm going to turn my nose light off.
Stabilizer motion.
Ah, Betty is changing the stabilizer motion. So what Betty is doing is just letting us know that the airplane's trimming. ATC called, said climb and maintain flight level 210. And when you change that altitude, be sure and hit the magic button. We're in a nice VNav climb at 250 knots. There's 9,000 feet. I also like to suggest coming over here and gently dialing your heading indicator over to your new heading. Some airplanes do have some autopilot problems, and by doing that, it always shows you which direction you should be flying if the autopilot fails. Aha! 10,000 feet. Let's go ahead and do landing lights off. Landing lights are off. And 10,000 feet's looking pretty good. We have a speed restriction of 250 knots until rivet. So the airplane's not speeding us up at the moment because it's waiting till rivet. ATC called again, climb and maintain flight level 360. That's our final cruise. So 36,000 feet. And be sure and push that altitude button again. Oh, and I've also forgotten to come over here, and instead of being a takeoff flex, we need to go to CL, climb mode. Whoops. This airplane keeps you busy, but it is a fun little airplane. And with a little bit of practice, you can just fly this thing all over the place. You can do a short haul, a medium haul, a baby long haul. I think these might make it out to Hawaii from LA. Maybe even more than that. Readjusting my heading bug again to straight up. There's rivet, and after rivet, we're going to get a speed up. So we'll watch that airspeed indicator. I have also forgotten to turn my transponder to Terra. And here is Terra. It's above 15 minutes, so we've got traffic at 15 miles. Very nice. We're done with the takeoff. I think we can go ahead and turn art back on. We're done with the art problems. We don't need to bother with anything down here. All of that's nice and clean. Up there's Rivet. And after Rivet, we should see our airspeed bug over here. Ah, there it goes, climbing on up. So our airspeed bug's going to go up for our final climb power. And that's going to be about, looks like 290 to 300 knots for the climb. So that means that our rate of climb is going to go down a little bit. There's no waypoint on the map anymore. So we can come over here, and here's your map range. We'll click it up one. That is 20 miles. We can go another one. There's 40 miles. That's probably pretty good. You could also turn on nav aids, airports, and data. How about airports and data? There's airports and data. Let's reset the heading bug. This is easy right now. Doing this in VATSIM with full ATC, that's when this airplane gets busy. And we are cruising on up to our final cruising altitude, and we are direct to bang. So we departed out of Atlanta with a bang. All right, and there we all are coming out there. We're pretty much done with that chart. And I will usually roll this out a little bit here and use this so I can see what airports are around me. As we go out, it's also good to be able to see where changes in air route traffic control centers are. We're done here with our bugs. I'm going to pinch the bugs together now and just close those for now. We're just going to cruise. The last thing that I might do at this point is come on back over here to menu and go over to the FMC and put progress up here. We are 373 miles from Tampa. It's giving us an estimated time of arrival of 1744 Zulu. And we should have 11,400 pounds of fuel in the tank when we land. Those are very rough numbers at the moment. The important number here is now to come down to FinRes and Alton, final reserve and alternate fuel. That is a combination of the 30 minutes of fuel at the bottom of those three, our fuel to get to our alternate airport, which is Miami, and another 15 minutes of, oh my God, we're all going to die fuel. So all of these three numbers add up to final reserve and alternate 7.9 is how that would be if you decimalize the number. Well, we've got 11.5 because somebody boarded extra fuel, so we got plenty of extra gas if we have to go around or something, or hold. And 1744 Zulu, if you look over here on the flight plan on page 3, it'll actually give you your schedule, and it shows that we were supposed to land at 1710 Zulu. We were a little bit late. Here's the thing, let's see what happens to that number when we finally get to our cruising altitude. It usually goes down a little bit. It usually goes down, but we're relatively on time at the moment. The current time on the airplane is 1846. It says 1846 Zulu, 1745. Am I reading that right? That guy is, 16. Oh, it's not 18. It's 1646. That little line's in the middle of the way. Oh, okay. That wasn't very brilliant of me, was it? Yeah, that time seems to work out. Yeah, see, there's a little line there. And up, we are past 18,000 feet. There's no magic button that I've been able to find, so you just have to dial it down to standard altimeter, which is 2992 or 1013 if you're in Europe. Also come over here and do the same thing, 2992 on your backup altimeter. This automatically, I think I have it set to automatically set the co-pilot's altimeter, so you don't have to worry about the co-pilot. Cool. and reset this out, this over here to straight up. And not so bad. We're now direct to LUCKK, passing 23,000 feet. I might go over here and hit the no smoking sign, which is up here, and that'll ring the bell. Let the flight attendants know that they can get up. So flight attendants can get up, start doing the flight attendant things. But I'm leaving the seatbelt signs on till about 25,000 feet. Here in the cabin looks a little bit old, but the airplane works great. The old airplane had 2 on the left and 3 seats on the right. And if you also look back here towards the rear of the airplane, you've also got a back of the airplane galley. So back of the airplane galley right there. And if you keep going, this is where it's going to get a lot more noisy. Because if you look out the window, there's a big old engine. Well, there you can kind of see in that big old engine too. And there are some people that say you come on back here and, you know, the view here is just engine, right? That's it. They say if you don't mind the engine sound, and you need to get some sleep, the purr of the engine will put you right to sleep. I don't know. I've only been on one of these once, and we were sitting right behind the wing. The back door does work. The air stairs work too, so that's kind of cool. So you could also board people with air stairs. There's 26,000 feet, so that's probably just fine. It's not very bumpy. So now we're going to go from seatbelts from on to auto. And everything looks good. APU is off. Air conditioning's good. Another thing to do, like the real pilots, is to come over here, check the pressurization, see that the cabin is actually, you know, climbing with the airplane. And all is right with the world there. You can get some pretty old classic liveries. This was known as the old Delta widget livery. So you can get plenty of classic liveries. Hawaiian used to fly these things, I think, inter-island for the longest time. So that was actually pretty awesome too. There's 28,000 feet. If you need a reminder, look at the autopilot. We're going to flight level 360. And over here on our charts, on the bang departure, LUCKK is the last waypoint. So we're almost done with our departure from Atlanta. So one of the things that I'll start doing is coming over here, and I will go to airports, and I'm going to get Tampa, and I'm going to go over and look at weather. And the weather, winds are nothing at nothing. 10 miles visibility, it's clear. The altimeter is 3021. Very nice day in the neighborhood. We can go to runways, and right now we're expecting landing on runway 1 left, I think. It says that 19 right and left and 10 they have a not used thing here. So the ones are still active, it looks like. Right now for our arrival, we're expecting the ILS over here on 1 left. Then you get to the airport and you think, where am I going to park? How do I know where to park? Well, one of the things you could do is go to a real-world flight tracker website. Like I go to FlightAware. You could go to Flight Radar 24 and put in your arrival airport, KTPA, Tampa. And here is real-world Tampa. Now, so a lot of the European airports don't have this information, but you can go and look for a Delta flight. Here's a Delta flight from Boston. Here's Minneapolis. Here was a 757 from Hartsfield to Tampa. Where did that airplane park? That airplane parked at gate Echo 64, E64. So over in our flight notes, let's put in for an arrival gate E, whoops, stop, E64. Usually what happens is as you're landing on VATSIM, as soon as you touch down, the tower's usually going to say, welcome to Tampa, exit right when label, exit right when able, ground point 9. That's a lot to do while you're landing. But one of the things I'll do is look for my ground frequency and preset that before I land. And then the thing that you're going to say to ground, the first thing ground's going to say is, hey, welcome to Tampa, say parking, is what ground is going to say to you. And what they want you to do is give them a gate number. You could say nearest available, or, your choice. Or you could say, if you went and you looked and you found that Delta is parking at Echo 64, you could say Echo 64. And then they're going to give you your taxi in. So now that we've taken off, we're flying high. Let's go over here and we're going to go and clear out our stack of charts here in Navigraph. So we don't need any of the Atlanta stuff. We're not going back to Atlanta. If we had to, we could get it back easily. But now we can go in here and look at the gate map and see where Echo 64 is. Well, there is airside E, Echo, and there is gate 64. So there's our gate right there. We're landing on runway 1 left, so we're going to exit probably Whiskey 6, Victor 5, and right into the gate. So we've got a really nice, easy taxi. And the whole point of all of that is after you get in the air and you give yourself a breather, now's the perfect time to go and start planning for your arrival, especially in a busy VATSIM event. We're going to go to cruise mode, and we are at our final cruising altitude. And so we're going to put it into cruise mode here too. And we're going to, our econ speed is going to be 0.75, Mach 0.75. We are 161 miles from top of descent, which the airplane says will happen at 1714 Zulu. It is now 1654 Zulu, even with that little thing in the middle there. So 1714 is going to be our top of descent. At this point in time, the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my heading bug is straight up. I might go and make the map a little bit wider just to see what's up here. I'm also going to come down to my transponder and we're going to change it. It says A and B, so that's above, normal, and below. And so now our TCAS is set to normal. I can keep an eye 15 miles ahead of me. That's great. We know that our fuel is going to be good. And now we're just cruising. So the thing to do is if you've got your wing views set up, and you really should have your wing views set up, now you get to go and enjoy the ride. And I do suggest, especially in Microsoft Flight Simulator, set up your wing views. Get ready to enjoy the scenery, because that's satellite scenery. That's, if we were flying a flight, if we were flying from Atlanta to Tampa right now, look out the window, that's what it would look like. So incredibly cool. And then if you've got a map, if you want to be a virtual tourist, you can see, oh, we are coming up on Albany, Southwest Georgia. And there's an airport down there and everything. And look at that. There is an airport. Gee, that must be the airport. So you can be an airplane. You can be an airplane tourist too. So generally what I will do on these cold and dark videos is if we've got a little bit of time like this to cruise, and we clearly have 146 miles until top of descent, why don't we take a little bit of a break? What I'm going to do is hit pause on the recording. And if you're flying with me, you should hit pause on your playback. And when your airplane gets to be 50 miles from top of descent, 50 miles, you start your player again because I'll start my recorder again. And with that, we can go and grab another cup of coffee, grab a snack, look out the window, and then we'll start planning our descent and arrival into Tampa. So if that sounds good to you, enjoy the view, and we will see you 50 miles from top of descent. There we go, 50 nautical miles from top of descent. Welcome back to the MD-11. The MD-82. The Maddog is still flying. We are out over the water now, and it's time for us to start getting worried about alligators, right? So let's come on in here. And by the way, yep, alligators do get on runways and taxiways in Florida, if you haven't heard that story. We are 50 miles from top of descent. So coming on in here, if we look at our legs coming on in, you see some altitudes here, and it does show above 8,000 feet and 11,000 feet here at Maddie. We got 5,000 feet at Tooth, and there's Buggo, and let's see, Phelim is 5,000. So usually ATC knows all that, and they're going to probably at some point clear us to descend at pilot's discretion on the Maddie 4 arrival, and they'll tell us that Tampa's landing north. That's what we would know at this point. So as soon as you get that clearance, as soon as I'm cleared to descend via the Maddie 4 or whatever arrival, I'm going to look and see what's the lowest altitude. Because I'm cleared to do this, and it's 5,000 feet at Phelim. Excuse me, on this airplane, it's really simple. Come on over here, and we're going to put in 5,000 feet. 5,000 feet, almost there. And I'm going to push the button and arm it. And now at this point in time, the airplane is going to descend us when we get to the top of descent. We don't have to do anything else. It's set, it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just move this over here. But the next thing that we got to do is start making sure that we can land. So performance, now this time I have to slide this over here a little bit so we can click the landing tab. And now we're going to go into Tampa. So we have to put in KTPA. There is, no, not QA. There we go, KTPA. So that's pretty good. Now we've got Tampa set up there. We know that we're going to be expecting runway 1 left. That's already preset. What about the weather? Same place we got it before. Let's come on over here and go to airports and Tampa and weather, and there is the latest METAR. I'm going to go and Control C and Control V, put that right into my flight notes. All right, so that's pretty good. So we know that that's our next step, is to go and put in the wind. What is our wind in Tampa? Our wind is 230 at 8 degrees. 230/08. And enter. Gonna have a 5-knot tailwind on that one. We'll look at that in just a sec. Outside air temperature, it is 21 degrees in Tampa. Starting to warm up today. We're gonna go flaps 11 and 28. Our altimeter in Tampa is 3020. 3020. Enter. I have reversers. I'm also going to have my auto brakes set to medium. And now we need to do the landing rate. So we do the landing rate over here, and we're going to go back to menu, ACARS, and over here, remember we had our load sheet, our final load sheet, next page. There was our takeoff weight, 121,805. Landing weight, that's the fuel that we burned, means our landing rate is 114,564. So 114,564. And enter. And now we can calculate. So we got an 8,000 foot runway with reversers and auto brakes to medium. We need 7,000 feet to land. There you go. VREF is going to be 134. So we could land the airplane pretty good. So I'm going to come back over here to menu. And we're going to go back over here into progress. We're going to look over here and see we're really close to top of descent. And we're going to come over here and start dialing this heading bug in, straight up and down. And the airplane says, over on the cruise page, we're 9 miles from top of descent. We're pretty much all ready to go. If you look down here between the two flight management computers, and if you click the takeoff data card, it flips it over to the landing data card. This also gives you landing data, which is pretty cool too. So you don't have to use those. The numbers are elsewhere, because back in the day, they had all of these flip cards that they would flip back and forth depending upon the weight of the airplane. And this is saying the landing rate is 120,000. That's our weight right now. We're going to be landing a little bit lighter. So all of this looks good. The next thing we might do is, with all of this done, we could go and click bugs, and that's going to set us all up for our descent. We're at Mach 0.74, and the airplane has slowed it down a little bit. We're 2 miles from top of descent. So we'll look over here. The TCAS has just started to point it down, and we have started our descent into Tampa. All right, so that looks pretty good. Generally on a VATSIM event, one of the things that I will do is I will do things really early. Ridiculously early. And I'm sure that some real-world pilots say, wait a minute, we never do that then. Here's the deal. If you're on VATSIM, this is a two-person cockpit, and you are one person. So I tend to do things a little bit sooner, like I'm going to come on down here, and I'm going to switch my auto brakes to medium right now. Right now, because I might forget a little bit later on. Now, if I had my checklists and stuff, I wouldn't, but I just tend to get things done a little bit earlier. Also on the descent, I'm going to keep an eye on this little bug right here. That says fast, and that says slow, and the airplane wants to have the pink round thing over the white diamond. And if that's in the middle, that means that we're not going too fast or too slow. And that's going to help manage our descent. And if we start to get a little bit too fast on the descent, you might need to throw out your speed brakes, which is the reason at this point that I did not arm my speed brakes for landing. The other thing that I will do is come over to dial a flap, and I'm going to change this now to flaps to 15. Because I want an intermediate flap setting as we're coming in here. And so there's flaps 15. So I can go 0, 15, 28, and that's usually the way I'll do these. I'll set these coming in. That might not be the right way, but that's the way that I usually do that. The airplane has also given us the descent deviation gauge here. This lets us know with that little pink diamond whether or not our descent is where we're supposed to be. And if that little thing's in the middle and we're not going to, now we're going a little bit slow. So I think the airplane's probably descending a bit fast right now. There are no real constraints coming in here. So as long as we hit 15,000 feet, 5,000 feet by Phelim, I think we're good. So at G.I. Joe, the only thing we got to do is worry about being between 8,000 and 11,000 feet at Maddie and 250 knots. So that's the big thing we've got to worry about. And we already saw in the flight management computer that it has that constraint in legs. So over here to legs, there's Maddie. It says 285. No, that's not what this says. This says 250. I'm going to go and put 250. That might not be right. Let's do 250 and put that in by Maddie. Yeah, there we go. And execute it. Above 8,000, below 11,000. That's right. But yeah, that was a little bit fast. The real pilots are going to check those things long before I ever caught that. Okay, I'm going to move the map in a click here. There is Ahoy. We're at 26,000 feet, and the airplane is really descending like a banshee now. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out some speed brake. We're going a little fast here. So you can see down here, I got my speed brakes about halfway out. You can see my speed brakes are about halfway out on the wing. And let's see. Oh, wow. Now all of a sudden we've decided we needed to descend at about almost 6,000 feet per minute. Probably not the best thing for us to be doing. And it wants to put us at 5,000 feet. Something's weird here. Something's not so right. Yeah, we got drag out there, airplane, but why are you doing this? Drag, yes, I know, you've got drag. Leave me alone. I think it's trying to hit 8,000 and 1,100 at Maddie. And we definitely have the speed brakes out. I don't get it with this arc over here, though. Something doesn't seem right. So what do you do if something like this is going on? Well, I'm going to change this to 8,000 feet and arm it. So now I basically am telling it to stop at 8,000 feet until we get to Maddie. Oh, we've got an altimeter change, 3020. 3020. Maybe it's because we're so hot, have such high pressure here. And we're going to be good pilots, and we're going to set this to 3020. Good airplane. Okay. So now it's going to try and start putting this thing 8,000 feet over at Maddie. So that's good. Speed. Okay, now we're going a little bit too slow. So put the speed brakes away, and now something might have gotten tangled up. The thing is with crazy things like this, you really can recover easily, and we're still flying. 25,000 feet, I would have done seatbelts. Unless there was turbulence, and then I would have done that a little bit sooner. Now all of a sudden we're caught up and the airplane's happy. There's 16,000. I think we're going to make it, I hope. Still out over the water, though. So full alligator patrol. We could set up our ILS now. Assuming ATC doesn't change our runways, but our ILS is supposed to be... And it's going to be 108.9, and the inbound course is 007. Absolutely perfect for the spy flight. So 108.3. 108.9. 108.9. And 007 for our inbound course. Another good reason to really like going into Tampa. Okay, the other thing that we care about is minimums. Normally in most of the modern jetliners, you're going to have the barrow or the big number 211 feet. That's going to be what you put in the barrow box in the flight management computer over in the Airbus A320. This thing has radar altimeter, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the smaller number, which is 200. And that's going to get set over here, and you'll see a number up here. Up here it says DH11, and just dial in 200 feet, and that's your decision height. I don't think we have a barrel box on this airplane. 200 feet. Let's go and look and see. We could go to init ref, and it doesn't say anything about that. All the other data is good. Flaps 40 is 129. I like to leave it at 134, flaps 28 for as long as I can. And especially until I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to go around. If you've got to go around and flaps are out at 40, boy, this airplane doesn't like that very much. So I usually go to flaps 28 to start. And then when I'm sure, okay, when I know we're going to do that, then I'll go to that speed. I also add 1 knot to every one of these numbers. Just a little bit of a fudge factor there. Okay, we're coming up on Maddie. The airplane's doing pretty good. Maybe a little speed brake. We're a touch high, perhaps. A touch fast. Not so bad. Maddie's probably about 10 miles out right now. So let's bring the map in another click. Yeah, so Maddie's 5 miles out. We're at 12,000. We're going to be fairly close. So I'm going to go ahead and let it continue on down now to 5,000 feet. And we should be between 8 and 11. The other thing is will it reduce our speed to 250 knots? We're on a VNAV descent right now, so my guess is we're going to be good. We shall see. 3 miles from Maddie. And 11,000. We're going to hit Maddie spot on. We are a touch fast, so I do have my speed brakes out right now. I mean, well, no, we weren't. No, it reduced our speed. No, we're not fast. The airplane's smarter than I am. Look at that. 250 knots. What a smart airplane. If only the pilot were as smart. And we'll put speed brakes back down. One of the rules that some real pilots like to talk about is the speed brake handle on approach. And in the real world, there's some pilots that say when you're on approach, if you have to use your speed brakes, you always keep your hand on the lever. Because sometimes you forget because you go and do other things and you got your speed brakes out and then all of a sudden you're setting up to land and the airspeed doesn't look right, the airplane's handling different. Oh, the speed brakes. So one of the rules that they like to say is keep your hands on the speed brake if you've got them out. Which is one of the reasons why I've been so happy with the Thrustmaster TCA Airbus Captain's Pack and the throttles that have the speed brake handle. So I literally can, if I need my speed brakes, use it like the pros. And I'm not sponsored by Thrustmaster. I think anything with a good speed brake handle is exactly what you need. So now we're a little bit slow and a little bit high. So I just threw my speed brakes out a little bit more. To try and get the diamond on the descent deviation a little closer to center. We are at 10,000 feet, so it's landing lights time. And landing lights are right over here, so extend them. There's two sounds that you've probably been hearing throughout this flight. That it's the best impression I can do. And that is usually when you hear that, that means that the trim is moving. The auto trim is moving. The real high-pitched, constant, whiny sound, that is the sound of the little motors that are moving your throttles. That's the auto throttle. And so that whiny, high-pitched sound is the auto throttles moving around. And all of this is looking pretty good. Usually about now as we're coming in on a descent, though, ATC is going to start saying, Delta 441, maintain 210 knots. So you got to go over here and start doing your speeds. So we're going to go to the speed, and I'm going to go and drop this now down to 210. Because they're going to start telling you, they're going to start speeding you up and slowing you down based on traffic. So now we're going to go ahead and reduce our speed to 210. And speed brakes are going to pop out. We'll also start throwing out some flaps. And our speed is starting to come down just a bit. There's 8,000 feet. Oh, let's reset the heading bug. We're going to need that to be straight up here. There we go. We're also probably off of the flight management computer, so you could start using your vertical speed to help you slow down too. If, I mean, we're doing really good, and we're coming up on blowout. We're actually a little bit high on the arrival. So let's go ahead and do that vertical speed down to about 1,000 feet per minute. There's 210 knots. Put speed brakes away. We're still going to make our altitude just fine. In fact, we can go ahead and probably reduce it to about 7. And 210 knots, we're slowly slowing it down. And that's really good. And we're on a 20-mile range. I'm going to bring this in too. There's blowout. I've got my charts over here, and I'm going to start having them set up as we come on in here. Again, we're going to come in on one left, so we know we're going to be exiting to the right. Briefing yourself about that. Exiting to the right at this point in time really is helpful. Platform altitude is going to be 2,600 feet. That's another good number to have in your head, too. I'm still going to leave the moving map on. So the moving map is on over here. And that's a great way to keep an eye on your airplane, particularly if you're flying one of those airplanes that has a couple of bugs in the flight management computer and everything. If you look over there, there is Tampa Airport. There's our airport. You can tell there's alligators looking up at us. Another thing up here, it says GS fail. Don't worry about that. That just means the ILS, we're not picking up the glide slope. If we weren't picking up the localizer, what we are, it would say LUCKK fail down there. And fail sounds like a really serious word. Oh my gosh, something's failed. No, it hasn't. We're just not in range of the radio station. I remember when I first saw that pop up and I said, oh, what did I break now, you know? Okay, all is right with the world here. And our speeds are good. We've got our leading edge slats out. If you don't know about your speeds for slats and flaps, they're over here. So slats extend, flaps down. We're actually, we could go flaps 11 right now. And flaps 15 is 240. Oh, we could do flaps 15. Let's do flaps 15. There's slats. Oh, we didn't have slats out. And here come flaps 15. There goes flaps 15. The flap handle for the TCA Airbus doesn't work really good with anything other than an Airbus, so I usually kind of leave that alone. Coming up on 5,000 feet here, 210 knots. We're a little low on the approach, but that's okay. Sometimes they'll bring you in low anyway, because if there's not a lot of traffic, they'll turn you and you'll be making a tight turn. I mean, the runway really is what, 7 miles away here? We're coming up fast. There's our airport right there. They're probably already getting the gate ready for us. And here's 5,000 feet, 210 knots. After we make the turn on the Maddie arrival, we're going to go out on a heading of 187. Fact is, we're making the turn right now. So we'll preset 187 as our heading. 187. There we go, 187. And that's pretty close to straight up there. That's not so bad. Okay, coming up at Tooth, 210 knots. Our speed's already 210 knots. Then it's Phelim, and then we can start our approach. 5,000 feet, our platform altitude again, 2,300, I think. So at this point in time, as we're coming in at any time, ATC may say Delta 441, descend and maintain 2,600. So they may go and do something like Delta 441, descend and maintain 3,000. So set it, push the button, do vertical speed, and go down. And usually this close in, I'll do 1,000 feet per minute unless ATC wants us to move like we've got a purpose, which they sometimes do. Passengers looking outside, seeing the bridge and the airport. Okay, now then, I'm going to just readjust this up just a little bit so it's straight up now. We do have a little bit of a wind, tailwind blowing us off, so we're going to go ahead and set this straight up to the top and press the H button. We are now in heading mode. We just turned off LNAV. And we're coming down to 3,000 feet. I'm going to reduce our rate of descent a little bit. Don't need to go down super duper fast at the moment. And there's the wingtip. Up, another big bridge. And there's where we need to be at 2,600 right there at Lago. But we're going to stop at 3. And there's 3,000. There's the horn. We're still at 210 knots, and that's usually what ATC is going to have us do. I think we're done with our speed brakes now. I don't think we need those anymore, so we're going to arm them. Speed brakes are armed. Auto brakes are set, but they're not armed yet. We have to have our gear down, our flaps down, a bunch of other stuff before that's going to let us arm it. Everything else is looking pretty good. Don't have to turn off ART or anything. All of our lights are good. Coming up on Phelim. And you can see now we're also picking up glide slope. So let's go a little bit further so we can get below the glide slope. That way we can catch it as we're turning on in. So we'll go just a little bit longer. Now, ATC may turn us in really, really fast. And usually when the weather's nice like this, they're going to be saying things like clear for the visual. You don't need to do the ILS and stuff. Okay, we're well below that. ATC just called and said turn left heading 090. So 090 is going to be our heading. Using the autopilot. In an airplane like this, if you're on VATSIM, there is no shame in using the autopilot right now. You've still got a lot of stuff to do. And at this point in time, the tower would say something like, on the rollout, the airport is going to be your 10 o'clock position, report it in sight. When you look out the window and say, yep, we got the airport in sight. We haven't rolled out yet, so the airport's not in sight. And there's our rollout, and we'd say, airport in sight, right over there. They'd say, yep, okay, cleared for the visual, blah, 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 blah. Maintain 180 knots until 5 miles DME. That's usually another favorite thing that they like to say. Let's go ahead and start our turn in, and we're going to arm the ILS. Again, get a little help from the airplane. And we can do another click of the flaps. Let's also go ahead and do landing gear. Gear going down. There goes our landing gear. And we're lining up pretty good. We're direct to Lago. And it should snag the localizer for us just fine. There's 180 knots. Flaps are now 15. Hey, there it is, grabbing the ILS. Usually at the point where they kick us over to talk to tower, that's where I'll look at VATSIM, the radio, the VATSIM app, vPilot, and see if there's ground control. As soon as they kick me over to tower, I look to see if there's ground control, and I set my ground control frequency in as soon as I get to tower. There's plenty of time to do that, and that's what keeps us not so busy while we're landing and everything else, because that's usually a very busy time in the cockpit. Okay, here comes, we got glide slope. Nope, almost got glide slope. There it is. And make sure the airplane starts to descend when the little pink box is there. And we've started to descend with the glide slope. And then the next thing they're going to say is, well, they told us 180 knots until 5 miles DME, or to Phelim, or something like that.
2,500.
Aha, 2,500. Remind yourself of your speeds. 133 is flaps 28. We're not there, so let's go and be ready to go to 134. 133 plus 1. There's 5 miles DME. Close enough for me. Let's go to 134 for our speed. There's 134. And we're going to do one more click of the flaps in just a second. Speed's coming down. Not very fast, but pretty good. There's flaps 28. Now's the time to sit back, gently put your feet on your rudder pedals. I'm also going to turn my nose light on to dim. And I'm going to physically move my throttles here in the cockpit down to just below that halfway detent. Now the autopilot still has us, but I've moved my throttles back because we're going to need that. And we're doing a pretty good job of coming on in. Airplane looks good. Nice descent using the glide slope. There's 4 miles from the runway. Again, I'm going to remind myself that we are landing, we're exiting to the right. And the last thing I do before I turn off the autopilot is I look at the wind arrow. And I will sometimes actually visualize it and say, okay, the winds are from the left blowing me to the right. Blowing me this way. I kind of will do that just to help me figure it out. Betty is still with us, looking good. And when everything is all set, we look over here. AP is off. And now we've got control. And that light is going to continue to flash at you. I'm sure there's a way to turn it off. I haven't found it yet. And at this point in time, I'm usually pretty busy. So there's our wind. Yep, we got a little bit low. It's always going to yell at us.
Light slope. Light slope. Light slope. Light slope. 500.
Oh, come on, airplane. Don't you want to yell at me all the way to the ground? And this is where we're going to basically say our decision. We're landing. Flaps are now full. Auto throttle is off.
Minimums.
Little bouncy here today in Tampa. Was that an alligator? Little high. I probably should go around, but we need to wrap up the video.
30. 20.
This is technically go around zone.
10.
Reverse. Reversers are green. Reversers off. Manual braking. Well, we stopped pretty good. And we got an awesome landing rate, but technically we were well past the go-around zone. And I'll show you that in just a second. Exiting right. Flaps going up. Speed brakes going down. Around we go. Landing lights going off so we don't blind people on the ground. And remember our gate? We knew that that was going to be Echo 71. Now go ahead and flip this over here. Zoom it all the way in and you've got a great moving map to get you to your gate. So that's pretty good. Let's stop squawking. We'll leave it on transponder on the ground. We would probably come up here, hit the master switch for the APU. 1, 2, 3. Oh, gotta hit it start. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's probably pretty good. Put it to run. And as usual, I always seem to, if I'm looking away, we always seem to turn around a little bit. Okay, we missed our turn while we were doing the APU. But that's okay. We can still make it into Delta land. There is that master caution there. As we come in, we'll do flight directors. And around here we go. Hey, we got the flaps up and the speed brakes down. That's good news. Pretty long airplane. And our gate number again is gate Echo 64. And then we come over here. Looks like they've even got the right signs on the sides of the jetways here. So there's this little widget that you saw pop out here, and that little thing is the Flow Pro landing rate monitor. And what this is showing you is a little dot right in the middle. That was our touchdown point. So if we zoom on out, you can see that basically we touched down pretty much halfway down the runway. Definite go-around zone time. You know, we were supposed to go around long before that. But we did get a minus 161, so the flight simmer's obsession with butter all over the runway is pretty good. So we can go and be cheerful about that. Coming on in now, our gate is going to be 64, so we're going to come and swing around here onto the little Zulu taxiway and look around here. And there's the passengers. There's our gate. This is the Payware Airport, and I'll tell you, there are some incredibly nice Payware airports. Coming on outside, it's also a good idea to have a quick look. Get yourself oriented. And that's our gate right there at the end of Delta Land. And this, Delta flew a 757 today on this route from Atlanta down to Tampa. And there's gate 64. Let's be nice. We're going to turn off the nose light as we're pointing in here. We don't want to blind the ground crew. Although somebody was telling me that it's really not that bright. Coming in, we'll also stop squawking completely. And come out here. Some airports do have some pretty cool markings on the ground here. I usually have a hard time seeing them. But I'll usually grab something like that. Come on over here. And parking brakes are on. Let's go ahead and see. Did we start the APU? We sure did. Let's get the generator online. So there's our generators. And we're going to do engine number 1 and engine number 2. Engines going off. We're going to go seatbelts to off. Passengers are just going to be getting up. Let's also come over here and turn off the anti-collision lights. Oh, I should have turned the strobes off once we got to the once we got off the runway. And then you can get your old friend Pushback helper here to come over here, and you can request a jetway. Once you've requested the jetway, it's going to come out and that will open the door. You can come into aircraft services. You can open up your forward, mid, and aft cargo. You can go to ground and punch in the GPU again. This should open your forward main door and you could start unboarding the airplane. And that's going to unboard the airplane. And this airplane is so well done that you could then take the airplane, and from here, you could file a new flight plan on VATSIM, not turn the airplane off, and do what we like to call continuing service and fly down to Miami. Or something like that. And that's the MD-11. It is a cool airplane. There is a lot to learn about this one. One other thing about the MD-11, this kind of airplane, you need to stay regularly practiced up on the airplane. You can't just fly it once every 2 months or so and expect to do a good job. In my case, I've been flying it. I flew it about 4 times before doing this video. This was a lot better than the last one, but holy moly. The airplane really does take a little bit of work. It does not fly like an Airbus. Doesn't really fly like a Boeing either. Of course not. It's a McDonnell Douglas. So there you go. I hope that this helped. I hope it was a nice flight. I always like to say about my YouTube videos, while I am a private pilot and I can fly a Cessna 152, a 172, and a Cardinal, I do not have experience in a jetliner. That being said, I've been flight simming for a lot longer than I'm going to admit here. This is not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what works for me in the sim. And my hope is that this is what works for you too. I'm still very new here on YouTube. If you feel like leaving your questions and comments, I'm still to the point where I read every one. And if I did something wrong, I especially like to look at those questions and comments so that you can set me straight too. If you did enjoy this, you'll see a couple of ways that you can support the live stream over on Twitch down below. You can also use Ko-fi. Just hitting the like button helps an awful lot, as those of us in the content creation business say like and share and all that other ridiculous stuff. Thank you so much for flying along. I hope you are doing well and you're having fun with the sim. Now is a great time to be in the flight simulator world. Microsoft Flight Simulator, the scenery, well, my gosh, just look outside. The scenery's great. The airplanes are really coming together. We have some exciting new airplanes that are coming our way in the sim over the next 6 months. So now is the time to jump in and have an incredibly good time. I will look forward to seeing you again sometime real soon here on YouTube, usually about once a week. And we fly 6 days a week, starting at 1900 Zulu. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Time in the wintertime in the United States. Every flight is a group flight, either in multiplayer or on VATSIM, and you are welcome to join us. In the meantime, thanks for flying along. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you in the friendly sim skies. Cheers!